and thanks everyone for coming. This is Single Onion number 178. So we've been hanging in there for quite a while. I don't know how many we've been doing online, but this has been, I don't know, quite a few. So we've got five excellent poets for you this evening, so we're going to dive right into it. Our first poet is Jessica Moore. She's an author and literary translator. Her first book, Everything Now, is a love letter to the dead and a conversation with her translation of Turkana Boy by Jean-François Beauchemin, for which she won a Pan-American Translation Award. Mend the Living, her translation of the novel by Mélie de Kerangal, was nominated for the 2016 International Man Booker and won the UK's Wellcome Book Prize in 2017. Jessica's most recent book, which I have a copy of it here, The Whole Singing Ocean, is a true story blending long poem, investigation, sailor slang, and ecological grief, and was longlisted for the League of Canadian Poets Raymond Souster Award. And Jessica is coming to us this evening from her home in Toronto. So please welcome Jessica Moore.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Shelf Life, and thank you, Single Onion. It's great to be here. It's as I was mentioning just before we came online. It's a really stormy night here in Toronto, and maybe fitting to read a sea tale from this night. So this book, The Whole Singing Ocean, is, as David said, a true story told in fragments, which becomes several stories woven together. And it was sparked by a story a boat builder told me about his encounter with a whale when he was very young, when he was attending a French countercultural boat school. And he looked back on that time as a time when he felt unbelievably free, like the greatest adventure of his life. Um, in the 8 years between him telling me the story, me starting to read it, and the next time I ran into him completely by chance, some deeply troubling things had come to the surface about this countercultural school, and the school's director had had a number of criminal charges laid against him. And at first, both the boat builder and I resisted this darker turn, this like dark underbelly to something he had seen as so awe-inspiring. But for me, in the writing, it soon became clear that I had to follow the new twists and turns, and the story, in a sense, began to lead me and take on a character in a way of its own, drawing in ecological grief and the plight of the oceans, as well as elements of my own childhood and elements of my mother's childhood and the ways that trauma is passed along. So I'll just read the very beginning of the book, and the boat builder's encounter, my encounter with the boat builder and his encounter with the whale. The dreams began when I was still a child, always from shore, always racing to see them, leaping dark joy in waves hurled through with light. So when the boat builder invited me onto his boat and told me his story, I listened. We were lying side by side in the hull. The sea was calm but stirred, bubbles sounding along the wood like the whir in a vast aquarium, and there we were, specks inside. Long before building his own boat, he'd apprenticed aboard a marine biology vessel. Being the youngest, he was chosen to be towed behind, diving mask on, eye out for them. If he saw one, he was to tug the rope as a signal. And me, many nights I dreamed. Awe was in every dream, and sometimes it was the kind that makes the hackles rise up, and sometimes it was the kind that opens wings. This day he'd been trawling along thinking of music, jazz, the near impossibility of true improvisation, real randomness, because how can you trick yourself into playing something new? Patterns pull us, patterns form our slow sleeping states, our waking ones too, unless we keep wildly alert, on the lookout. That summer I'd thrown myself to the lions of another adventure. Curled facing each other, I confess I'd wished on the ferry crossing to spot one. Seeing a whale was a fathomless want, the kind you carry in childhood. Once in Newfoundland, I'd boarded the whale watching boat and then nothing, only the dismal puffins on their shit covered rock. Fog so thick I choked. I burst into sobs inside the car, slammed my hands against the dash. His hands and mine between us, though we have both been inside a greater love, a greater grief. Still, it's comfort in the presence of something far more vast than ourselves. Another boat builder, eh? Yeah, this one's a real charmer, musician and all, never stops talking. Did he offer to buy you lunch? No, nothing like that. We simply struck a chord, or rather, two chords side by side, on the organ. Yeah, the one on the porch. Would have thought it would be moss covered by now. 'Cause of all the rain? Yes. The blackberries were threatening to cover the high E, but we never got that far anyway, decided to have a Bloody Mary at the bar. Bar full of boat builders. There are a lot of them in these parts. What about you? Got your sea legs? Funny you should say that. We were just talking about it the other night, and it's not so much sea legs as sea ears. Come again? Throws my inner ear equilibrium right off. I still said I'd sleep over on his boat. There is a lot we carry with us into the hulls of ships. And I remember 1,000 times believing the dark was good, descending to meet it like trees to their roots. And I remember 1,000 times believing that it was not. Sometimes night is the surest thing there is. After the whale watching boat, I took the coastal road down the peninsula, following a hunch, parked the car past a narrow causeway. When I'd been walking the mist-pinned beach no longer than 20 minutes, the fog lifted, revealing the fins of them, tens of them, just meters offshore, so close I could hear it, the breath of whales. And on this day he tells me he did see one, a mother humpback, looming up from the depths beneath. He reached for the rope overhead, and here is where the story goes slant. Remember the tale of the mouse and the whale? Not sure I know that one. You do, I'm sure you do. One of those tear-jerking kids' books. Tell it to me again. The mouse is all alone in the immensity of the sea. Yes, alone and thinking of what it means to be a speck in all that vastness. Bit of a philosopher, that mouse. Feeling alone and insignificant, as we all are wont to do sometimes, and then his boat capsizes and he's full of fear. Yes, but the whale comes to save him. Yes, I remember it now. Have you ever lain on the surface of the water and felt the pull? In the midst of all the wondering, the awe-filledness and triumph and what have you, there was something more about Wales, a kind of noblesse, a mélancolie. What is it with all the French words anyway? Ha, pourquoi? Do you find them off-putting? That's not the word I would have chosen. Orgueilleux, then. What does that mean? It means prideful and perhaps condescending. You said it, not me. Sometimes they just fit better, like music. I think if the boat builder could, he would rather speak in riffs much of the time. Back to him, are we? Or like going into someone else's workshop and seeing a tool that would fit the job just right, like using a draw knife on a boat instead of a planer. Listen to you. You thinking of becoming a boat builder now too? No, but I have done my share of listening to them. That last time we stayed up all night till the phosphorescence dimmed, gravity and a deeper blue, the many-layered thing. Did you know that phosphorescences are like plankton and their brilliance is involuntary? All I know is that it felt like we were suspended in a sky full of stars. And there is too the cold white moon. Did you know that feeling of suspension is regulated by the inner ear? Sometimes I'd rather not know all the answers. People who design fun park rides study up on it. Sometimes I'd rather just sit back in the not knowing. And further still is swirling dark, as though whales may rise straight out of the void, that great mystery. If mystery is simply what we cannot see, then the ocean would be particularly rich. And what about the nighttime ocean? In the moment when he reached overhead, his instinct was not to tug the rope, not to signal, but to locate the metal of the clasp and release it. Where a French word might be useful, you find yourself face down in water with pewter skies pressing low, grisaille, and the long low ocean pressing back, miroitant, showing the sky its own face and gleaming, thrum rumble of slow motor pulling you along by a rope, eye on the depths. Each inch of your narrow body sleeked inside wetsuit except for face and hands, each meter of water baleen, and if you see one, reach overhead, tug the rope, signal to the mate on board so he'll call out to the captain. Except for the rumble, it's quiet, and in spite of the forward combing, there's stillness. You are moving still through vastest gray, thoughts careening to Django's guitar, water-cold fingers feeling out jazz chords, till there sings out a new sound, brief, but for that moment, all. Coming at you, all-sided, all-filling, and you see her, rising like an arpeggio from the dark. Then there are no thoughts. Overhead, your hand clambers, and reaching the rope rather than tugging, you unclip, swim free. Unlinked now to the human world, you dive down toward the fins, the dark and gleaming body, the broadly turning being filling up your view. You glide, lungs pounding, until you find the eye. You have never seen an eye such as this, so large, asking nothing, and then there you are, just you and the whale. With her you are the vast mirroring sea. You are the whole singing ocean. You are beheld, held in that eye, and you are whole. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jessica. That was really amazing. And thanks for joining us all the way in Toronto. We really appreciate it. Our next poet is Kyle Flemmer. Kyle is an author, editor, and publisher from Mohkinstsis in Treaty 7 territory. He studies digital poetics at the University of Calgary, where he is a teaching and research assistant. Kyle founded the Blasted Tree Publishing Company in 2014, and they publish really amazing chapbooks, which I'm always excited to get in the mail, so you should check them out. And he's also a former managing editor at Filling Station magazine. His first book, Barcode Poetry, was published by the Blasted Tree in 2021. So please welcome Kyle Flemmer.
Thanks so much, David. I figured I'd start by showing you some of the visual poetry that I have in this new book, Barcode Poetry. One of the advantages of doing a virtual reading is being able to screen share. So I'm just going to pull up some images here. Bear with me a second, and I can show you what that book's all about. Ooh, doesn't want to share it full screen, so that's all right. There we go. We should be okay now. So this is the first poem in the book. The barcode is not a form of poetry. I composed 101 poems using a typewriter using this form. And as you can see, each of the poems resembles a barcode from a distance, but have a different statement. Ask a doctor if poetry is right for you. Produce art daily with wild abandon. This landfill was made for you and me. God begetting man, begetting plastic. Right this way for gimmicks and frills. A lot of these poems sort of dwell on the intersection between art and money. I think it's really curious how these two things intersect and influence each other, especially living in like a late stage capitalist world. Being an artist and moving through the world as an artist is not necessarily the easiest way to make a living. If money reigns, where is my royalty? wear that little stripy number. Encrypted for your convenience. Buy something or you have to leave. I think I'll stop there because I have some other poetry to show you, but you can pick up that book at Shelf Life Books or on the Blasted Tree website, which is just the www.theblastedtree.com. And there's an online store there that has a whole bunch of chapbooks, as David mentioned. I'd be really happy for you to see them. We do focus on visual poetry and experimental poetry and that sort of stuff. So if you're producing things along those lines, feel free to drop me a line. I'd love to see it. All right, now I'm going to move over to a totally different project. It's like my second book length project, I guess, is primarily focused on space. Space exploration and our relationship to the stars and cosmic objects and how they sort of inform our lives and worldviews. And the series I'll be reading from today is called Stellar Cycle. And each poem takes for its subject a star in a different phase of its life cycle. And for instance, our star is a yellow dwarf, and stars spend most of their life in what is called the main sequence, where they burn up, I guess, their allotment of hydrogen. And when they start running low, they go through a very dramatic evolution. Sometimes they explode, sometimes they become a different kind of star, sometimes they become a black hole. And so I'll read a few different of these poems. Now, stars generally begin in a nebulae, so I figured I would start with the poem Stellar Nebulae. Wound in heaving voids of form, a subtle shroud, sub-molecules in hydrostasis. Anomaly rallies remnant novae, incites ignition. Protostars carve Lucretian swerve, a turning point of light. Nothing can spoil the finale, an order born of origin. As I mentioned, our star is a yellow dwarf, and each of these poems tries to parallel a kind of star with a different way of living and dying as like a human being here on Earth, to try and make their cosmic life cycle parallel with our lives here. So Yellow Dwarves is about religious martyrdom. On sunny battlegrounds, opposing protons co-immolate, solar monks bellowing, "Let there be light," as they collide. Material causation becomes religious preoccupation, fusion our respite from the kingdom of darkness. Ignorance blisters, but factions illumined cannot yet see how pride conceals cowardice. Words cleave matter into boxes of sound, and still we are plasmic shrapnel of incendiary rounds. So along the main sequence of the stellar life cycle, you have not only yellow dwarves, red dwarves, orange dwarves, but there's also some weird anomalies that are generally classified by having an abundance of a particular element that you wouldn't find in other stars. So this is a poem called Carbon Stars. You can imagine that they have an abundance of carbon. Ruby rays run from a sackcloth hood, sooty and oxygen bare. Like clockwork, justice dips her thumb. It is willed, though we condemn you till we know not what. Every villain stretches for your alleged crimes. Would that lines between victims were clear. Confess to passing strange and breathing in your neighbor's carbon, its compression chamber heat glow daily darkening your soul. Deprivation diagnosed, now deviant, step around the puddle into righteous fusillade. Make peace with an hour as divined by peerless jury when Chalo, the burnt umber afterimage, transits panoptic nerve. Watch hellfire convect in flesh, mercy rolled up into skull, as 3 megajoules of ablution sanctify the body's temples. So once stars leave the main sequence, they experience a cataclysmic change, oftentimes ballooning up into a giant or a supergiant. This poem is called Red Supergiants, and it's about mercenary killing. 100,000 heads down the slick pyramid steps, no sign from God just yet. Only this house fire of contested land, this linguicide standing dead-eyed in the bloody money, a shell of fusion consuming scarcity at its core. Hydrogen fuels ambitious destinies. To grow is to cannibalize our own. Rome also bloated in decline, a corpse king rat, red in tooth and famous. Never forget how the soldiers took aim over the heads of your enemies. Now incentivize the kill. We offer hit point multipliers and college scholarships for running riot, fatality, and an officer's salary if you can stay cool under pressure. As oily-fingered bureaucrats draft their depositions, we deploy in massive crimson waves our highwaymen and slavers sent to plow your garden like Cunigond. Choose the heath to die on in this roiling supercell. Booted troops amass behind a border wall, awaiting the attrition. Already reporters are avoiding embassies and stadiums. Already we jettison the outer strata, forsaking margins for machete silhouettes. So, what's a tontine among friends? Now, one of my favorite kind of stars is the black hole. And because it's coming up on Halloween, and this is a poem about the occult, I figured it'd be a good time to read it. Black holes. O censored sovereign, O Satan, spur me to write what I am afraid the future may read. Deliver the incantation which splits this poem. Lend it your shape and purpose, unpurpose, to unsay, unmake, unbe. Dear Satan, who lies in deep hell's obscurity, hidden be thy name. May warped waves lens the black dog beyond an horizon of fallen suns. May end times come to countries without emigrants, their searing tongues lick obscene at the altar of ape familiars. Hail Satan, full of matter, pull me from the narrow sunbeams of my linear obligation, from this ethic of normative being. Take me into the confines of your love. Take space, take time. Take me into your most secret garden, for hemlock pales to the crush of adrenochrome as libertines burn the evidence. But how to know the essence without an outward sign? Consult a daimonion of fate or principle. Listen closely. It whispers, "Hail Satan of radiant economy, God abhors your naked maw like the supermassive suck of an entry wound, asymptotic, a mnemonic without object. O engine of annihilation, O Chiron, shuttle me down to bottomless perdition, where the whole is reduced to a point." Some of the last objects left as the universe winds down will be white dwarfs. Now, white dwarfs are generally the little core left of a star after everything else has been blown off. And this poem was inspired by one by George Eliot Clark, which talks about canonization, which authors make it into the canon and which don't. Our first microsecond contains the grain containing everything else, an expanding cloud of subatomic particles, condensing hydrogen densities collapsing into stars, furnaces fed by gravity, weighted with rings of cosmic debris precipitating planets like bubbles round a drain. Life exists on radiation. We're a solar fermentation. Chlorophyll thieves defying entropic degradation of memory with art. Hegelian data miners inscribing poetic manifestations of spirit in stone, like Roland beating his sword, brains spilling from the ears while gripped on the wrist by an angel. I am an old star imploding in tearful pirouettes, called to hereafter by an excess energy, my true face hidden behind the cracked Grecian urn out of focus in the foreground. News is, white dwarfs are special, but we are all a little flicker of matter. Finally, when white dwarfs cool off and fade into nothing like an ember, they become a black dwarf. And so I figured I would end my reading today with the poem Black Dwarfs. Ember wasted, awful twilight, nearing final sunlit ruin. Horizons ebb like memory. After kinship, sputter, halt. Protons melt. The endless howling record spun out. Thanks very much.
Thank you much, Kyle. I think I heard a hoot in there. That was, I really enjoyed those. Our next poet is RC Weslowski, and he is a multi-talented performer who loves to walk between worlds to see what the ghost dragged in. RC wears many masks, including poet, clown, storyteller, playwright, broadcaster, voice actor, coach, and educator. Over the past 15 years, he has toured North America, the United Kingdom, and other parts of Europe, including many spoken word, poetry, and music festivals. RC wants to give you your emotional damage deposit back. Please welcome RC Weslowski.
Thank you very much, David. It's interesting you found an old bio, so that's kind of the ghost of my bio is being dragged in as well. I am super thrilled to be a part of this reading today, and thanks to those who have read so far and coming up. I love the barcode stuff. I thought that was really quite fascinating and fun. I'm broadcasting today from Vancouver, colonially known as Vancouver, also the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And I primarily mention that out of respect to them, as they are still living here, thriving, striving for betterment of all things, and also to remind myself that these lands that are here existed pre-colonialism and will more than likely, I'm sure, last after colonialism. And so it's just to remind myself and to encourage myself to always think that this is happening now. This is happening now. It's not something from the past, and that we are here on these unceded territories right now. At least I am here in Vancouver. I'm going to start with, I was trying to think of poems that could be Alberta based or have references to Alberta. And then I remembered this one. I wrote it for my friend Zacchaeus Jackson Nice, who passed away about 6 years ago. He is Blackfoot and from the Alberta area, southern Alberta. And so I thought I'd start with this one. It's a poem for Zacchaeus called Casa Supernova. You were an adventurosaurus, the only dinosaur never killed by that legendary meteorus, a survivor, a sojourner, traveling the world, telling your tall tales of truth to any youth who would listen. And man, did they listen with rapture and awe to all those words that could thaw the coldest, most cynical hearts. You were invincible, a transformer, a natural performer, a Blackfoot alchemist, taking the darkness that found you, how profound you, becoming a Casa Supernova, sun bursting us with your beauty. It's hard to believe now that you're dead. I can't wrap my heart or my head around it. It doesn't seem possible that anything in this stupid world could ever kill you. When I heard the news, I thought you died wrestling an alligator, or a saber-toothed tiger. Maybe you were crushed by a heavy cookie, or pushed off a cliff by a mastodon, or challenged to battle by Ogopogo. And it was one of those legendary battles, those duels that laid waste to the landscape like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. But instead of dying, you rose triumphant. And when it was over, Ogopogo, like so many others before him, became your best friend and family, because you knew your family can never be too big. And if you make enough friends in this life, you'll never die. But I suppose it makes sense that if it had to happen, it would take a motherfucking train to kill you. That's for Zacchaeus Jackson Nice. Yeah, I was running around today getting ready for this show, and so, you know, I'm an hour behind or whatever, so I had to rush home from work and do stuff for work. I was like taking the day off tomorrow because I'm going to be reading in Victoria, and then all of a sudden, an hour and a half before I was supposed to leave, and my week was done. I got these 3 projects that have to be finished for tomorrow, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on? There's just no fucking time to fucking live. I mean, really, I have to work, to write, to edit, to submit. I have to hurry up and be a has-been in the poetry scene. But before that, I need a wider profile to build a bigger presence. I need to tumble, to tweet, to snap, to chat, to put the me into meme and go viral. But I need a plan. You know, you got to have a plan. And then it'll be action. It'll be nonstop action. But, you know, I need an idea. I need one good idea, but it can't be too good. Otherwise, Margaret Atwood will steal it. I need one good average idea so I can make millions, and that'll give me some free time and time to enjoy myself, you know, to relax, to slow down, to breathe. I can slow down and meditate and be with my thoughts. No. Being with my thoughts is part of the problem. There's no fucking time to fucking live. I need to clean myself up, you know, get motivated, stay focused, quit drinking, get drunk, quit drinking, get drunk, quit drinking, get drunk. I mean, the hangover is the only thing that helps slow me down. But I should run for mayor. Yeah, get drunk and run for mayor of Toronto. And during one reckless bender, I could puke in the street and see visions in my vomit where the Prime Minister of Canada and the Premier of Alberta are there together. The Prime Minister is bending them over and whispering in their ear, your nickname is my constituents. Fuck the voters, fuck the voters, fuck the voters, until they both started squirting oil out of their foreheads. And then I could post that video on Pornhub and sell it to BuzzFeed and make a fortune in residuals. And then I'd have time to figure things out. Then I could learn to love myself. I have no time to love myself. Do you know how long therapy takes? There's no fucking time to fucking live. But I should get married, raise a family, adopt a highway, treat it special, show it some love, build its self-esteem, make it feel special. It'll grow up to be a school zone, and then I'll be a civic champion. Then I won't ever be lonely again. I mean, everyone's attracted to success, except for like the women on OkCupid. How come no one ever writes me back? I shouldn't have mentioned that I like poetry and heavy metal music. I mean, the internet, who knows? Lonely women on the internet don't even like poetry either. And then they all say like they look like the girl next door, but that's kind of awkward. I mean, I grew up on a farm and my cousins were my neighbors and they're both kind of cute, but we just have to talk about artificial insemination and milking. There's no fucking time to fucking live. And I have to worry about finishing this poem. Will anyone ever think it's a poem? Is this even really a poem? Or it's just like that other poem where I pretend to be paranoid? I mean, I'll have to worry about my reputation. I have a reputation. It's just a poem. It doesn't matter. I just want a small home with a backyard, a lawn chair, a cold beer, a sunset, and someone to share it with me. I have to let everyone I know that I love them right now. I love you. I love you. I love you. It's okay. I'll figure it out tomorrow. I mean, I will. I'll just sit back, relax, and figure it out with tomorrow. I mean, I'll come up with a plan. You got to have a plan. And then, yeah, and then maybe tomorrow they'll all get figured out. But until then, you know, there's no fucking time to fucking live. I guess you can figure out the title of that poem. There's no fucking time to fucking live. And it feels like we're all at the ends of each other all the time, you know, fighting against each other, arguing against each other. And I just came, I thought, oh, actually I was in Banff when I heard this idea, this phrase come up in conversation. And instead of like fighting and saying we need to be right, I figured we should all just not get it together. I mean, some people say that the world is corrupted from our hearts to the way our gods love us, as if they know they're already dying and they're determined to drag us down with them. And just like that flagpole in winter demanding our affection, we've stuck our tongues to their ancient religions, leaving us dumbstruck and blinded by the icons of the icons that keep us from seizing the truth. But what that truth is, I don't know. I have no answers to definitively give. I have enough trouble figuring out which day is garbage day after a statutory holiday. The rules of this world make little sense to me. Each day seems to give us more reasons to not care, to remain in our caves feeling feral, angry, and abandoned in a kingdom we feel lost in and abused by. But I say, here's the thing about a king. At its best, royalty is novelty. At its worst, it's oppressive, and our love has got to be more impressive than that. So brothers and sisters and the magnificent gender-bending binary fisters, let's be moved by the ooh and wowed by the awe. Let's bathe in the wonder of the blunder that created us, the cosmic giggle that leaves us laughing and asking, what are we doing here? Who's driving this bus? I don't know, and neither do they who say that they do. So what's a sacrilegious trickster to do? Well, why not try on a new shoe and see if it fits? So I posit this pickle. I float out this feather. My friends, let's not get it together. You and I, me and we, let's build this sacred union of confusion, a family of the flummoxed and flabbergast, a perpetual party of the puzzled and perplexed, building this grand and boisterous bafflegab, poets, wide-eyed, slack-jawed, and drooling, slapping our foreheads with vigor and distinction. Let's not get it together. This is your permission slip to be human, not horrible. The pressure's off. We don't understand. We'll never figure it out. And so, my friends, I surrender myself in awe and devotion. Let's see what happens when the wheels come off. Let's not get it together tonight. Thank you. And so one more poem for you. Those are all from my book, My Soft Response to the Wars. Thank you to Shelf Life Books. That was such a nice surprise to see that you had copies there already. That's great. Yeah, so please, if you can, if you're interested, go to Shelf Life Books, get some copies. That'd be wonderful. I'd like, yeah, more than one. You know, holidays are coming up. I want to give stuff away. Or just give them, I've been putting them in those, I don't know if you have them in Calgary, but those sort of free little public libraries on street corners where people put books and just, you know, trade them and take them away. I've been putting them in there. It's kind of fun to see. I have no idea where they're going to go, who's going to read them, what'll happen. You know, maybe they just become coasters on somebody's coffee table. But I was talking about, you know, how we fight and argue, and especially during COVID, there's so much stuff happening and people don't know what to believe, what's science, what's not science, and all that sort of, well, I mean, lots of people do and lots of people don't, but there's just so many, you know, arguments and stuff. And I thought about it, and I figured in case you are still feeling confused about it, I have a little bit of advice for you, and just wanted to let you know that it's just like this. Basically, I think it's a good idea to wear a turnip on my head. It keeps me safe from double standards and tearaway leather pants. Plus, I love how turnips make me feel sleazy. You think it's a bad idea to wear a turnip on your head. It makes you feel ephemeral. You don't want anyone telling you what to do. Plus, turnip farmers are controlled by Bill Gates' left nipple, the one he feeds turnips to in an underground bunker near Sacramento. You probably think I've been brainwashed by a chicken. I think you're a mass murderer who wants to see my grandmother explode. You say you don't believe in explosives. I say I don't believe in popping your peas. You say you'll never wear a turnip on your head, but you'll brush your teeth with dishwasher soap and tell everyone else their pants are full of quicksand. As an act of good faith, I replace my turnip with your diatribe and a box of dead shoelaces. The next morning, I end up puking cardigans at a bus stop while a gorilla plays paintball with my waffle. I take my motorcade and immolate your humpback. You chalk snort my daisies and spit on my owl. I get drunk on ivermectin tequila and curse the wolves in your pantry. You brandish my hangover with a pap smear and ask, why were we fighting in the first place? Who knows? It doesn't matter. What matters is that we hate each other and buy shares in corporate turnip stocks. Someone's got to get rich from all this bullshit. Thank you very much. RC Weslowski.
Thanks so much, RC. That was fantastic.
You're welcome.
And Shelf Life Books has the books in stock, and you can also order from their website.
Cool. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kelly Shepard. He's originally from Smithers, BC, and he currently lives in Edmonton, where he teaches at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. Kelly's second poetry collection, Insomnia Bird, which I've got a copy here, won the 2019 Robert Crouch City of Edmonton Book Prize and was shortlisted for the 2019 Stephen G. Stephenson Award for Poetry. He's also written 7 poetry chapbooks, most recently In the Space Between from the Alfred Gustav Press, and he is a poetry editor for the environmental philosophy journal The Trumpeter. So please welcome Kelly Shepard.
Thanks very much. Wow, I don't really know how to follow that. So this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to read 4 poems. 2 of them are kind of a sort of urban mythology type project that I'm working on. The other 2 are part of some writing I did a few years ago when I broke my leg and had to spend quite a bit of time in the hospital. So I'm going to start with the urban ones. This first poem is called Our Lady of the Urban Dawn. She reads leaf dust calligraphy and the scribbled silver overnight auguries of slugs. She is wrapped in a cloak of pigeon feathers. At night, the color of moonlight, dark purple in the morning sun, almost always invisible in the headlights of cars. She knows the sound nocturnal streetlights make when they fall asleep. And to the polyphony, the descending 6-sided harmonics of snow, she tilts her head to one side and listens. All right. This next poem is called Nomancy Crow. So capnomancy is a form of divination that's done with smoke. So watching the path of smoke as sort of fortune telling or divination. And this is kind of inspired by the idea that crows have been observed perching on the edges of chimneys and letting the smoke flow through their feathers. So apparently they do this to rid themselves of parasites, but I thought that was not a very interesting explanation. So capnomancy crow. Inkbird, chimney bird, reason for the night. I caught you smoke bathing. You can't take flight. Sleep bird, soot bird, dark flower in the tree. I have a question and you must answer me. Coal bird, shadow bird, absence in the sky. I caught you smoke bathing. You can't tell a lie. If a fortune teller could read palms simply by turning her face into the breeze, stirred by the hands of the client who opens the door and walks into the room, that fortune teller would be corvid and not hominid. The lifeline is a current of living air and has nothing to do with creases in human skin. There must have been some mixing of blood once, long ago, for human beings even to think about telling one another's fortunes. This story might not be lost. That we focused on talons instead of feathers, the fingertips instead of the hair, says much about the monkey mind. To persuade a crow to tell you the truth, you have to trick it. But every cat who has tried this knows, as soon as you begin to set a trap, the crow has guessed your third move and disappeared, or perched on a higher branch to feel what you'll do next, out of reach. No, you have to catch the crow unaware. But any child who has tried this knows, as soon as you bend to pick up a rock, the bird has flown off, sometimes out of sight, sometimes just a little further away than you can throw. They know what you're thinking. Crows recognize guns instantly, but it matters more that they see intention in mammal faces. They read body language using a combination of sonar and braille, receiving impressions from the winds with their heaviest feathers and interpreting them with their downiest. This happens in the black blink of an eye. They do the same with rising smoke. And this is when the bird is vulnerable. To bathe in smoke is to let oneself go, feeling pin feathers darken and ignoring the rest of the world. This is the time to act. This is the one and only time it can be done. Unfortunately for the seeker, finding a crow in this ecstasy can only be unintentional. All right, I'm gonna shift gears quite a bit now. Those are, like I said, those are poems from this project, which is sort of urban wildlife / mythology. So a few years ago, I broke my leg really quite badly, and it required lots of hospital time and unfortunate things. So one of the things I did was when I was in the hospital, I took my notebook in there with me and just wrote constantly. And so out of that is mostly, garbage. I was half asleep and I was whacked out on morphine and so on. And a lot of the writing is too weird. I don't know what to do with it. But one of the things I did was compiled a list of sort of images of metaphors for pain. So that's what this poem is. It's called Surgery 3. A barbed clock spring, a tightening screw, a bright opening flower, a sharp clawed lizard trying to climb but losing its grip, a leech with a dog's mouth, a hot red string, a burrowing rodent, a key breaking off inside the lock, a sardine tin key turning around my ankle, a porcupine rattle, a hungry ghost, pliers with nerve endings, a breathing bone, a bending spoon, a pike with fish hooks for teeth, a cracking stone, a rotary phone, a fan belt with a tack in it, a grain of sand under a spinning top, a fist full of hot coins, a balancing crowbar, a scrimshaw tattoo, two snakes trying to meet in the middle, a hatching egg, boiling water, twin succubi, painkillers, and pain. All right. The last, man, those are lovely memories. I'm glad I chose that poem. The last poem is called, it's from that same time period. It's called Peripherally Inserted. And in this poem, there's a mention of a PICC line. And so just in case you don't know what that is, PICC line, PICC, stands for Peripherally Inserted Central Catheter. And it's a line that starts somewhere on the outside of your body and goes up a vein into your heart. In my case, I had a pump attached to me for 6 weeks, and this was pumping antibiotics into my heart. So that's what this is about. Peripherally inserted. Oh, and it's not there anymore, by the way. This is past, so thankfully. This is what I put in your vein, said the nurse in the mask in the brightly lit room, holding up a coil of wire, thin and delicate as a violin string, and slightly bloody, glossy and black as a water snake in her gloved hands. So we could look at it in the X-ray to make sure the PICC line is going where we need it to go. I have 2 pumps now, one with a plastic blood vessel that enters my arm and follows through the tide and the darkness to the heart of me. Sometimes in the quietest nights, in the space between pulse and electric click and hum and breath and thought, I can feel the trembling scales. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Kelly. That was really fantastic. We have, well, one more poet that we're going to get to, but before we do that, I've got a few thank yous that I want to mention. The Single Onion received some support from the League of Canadian Poets, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Calgary Arts Development, the Writers Union of Canada, and the Writers Guild of Alberta. And we also want to thank Shelf Life for being our longtime partner and sponsor. You can find out more about us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We've got a website, singleonion.com, and you can sign up for our monthly email list to see what we're up to. And our next event will be November 18th. This will also be an online reading, and that will wrap up our kind of fall season. And yeah, you can always check out the Shelf Life website to see the books, and you can order them or go in store to browse. So our final poet this evening is Rhianne Hayes, and she's the author of 3 books of poetry. The first is The Stories in My Skin. The second is Stained with the Colors of Sunday Morning. I've got that one here from 2017. And her latest is Tell the Birds Your Body is Not a Gun from Frontenac House. She's the host of the literary podcast Crow Reads, the vice president for the League of Canadian Poets, past executive director of the Edmonton Poetry Festival, and a member of the teaching faculty with MacEwan University. Rhianne is a 2019 Edmonton Artist Trust Fund Award recipient. Her poetry and prose have been shortlisted for the Canadian Authors Association Exporting Alberta Award and the John White Memorial Essay Alberta Literary Award. Recent poems of hers have appeared in The Fiddlehead, The Selkie, and Indefinite Space. So please welcome everyone, Rayanne Hayes.
Thanks, David. And thank you, everybody who read. I loved listening to each one of you. Everybody is so different in this series. What a great night of poetry. So thank you all so much. My book, I have 6 pieces that I'm going to share with you. And this book began, my son in 2017 was suicidal. And this book details kind of our healing journey together. I ended up becoming quite, going through my own depression, and memories of PTSD of my own childhood abuses came out as we were trying to heal. And so this book became a way of writing through some of this stuff. And so I'm going to share some work from this. So. After my son considered death an option, I stopped eating meat. The idea of death, of swallowing it, became so abhorrent to me I could no longer eat an animal. I don't want my body to be a boneyard or a church. I rub my belly in the night still, thinking of birth and open wounds and lesions and how I have no more pretty left. I am heavy-breasted, a fat-lipped truth. I do not look at myself dying in the bed. I do not clutch rosary. I rip my secrets from my body with scissors and bleach, so sure of the meaning of revelation, so sure this act will make me unhallowed. I want something sacred to find me, to mark me, because yes, I met death on the basement stairwell. I met death in my bathroom mirror. I need to prove I am more than this fractured body, this bleach, sterile body held together by sinew and grief. Did you know sleeping octopuses change colors when they dream? These are the facts. I live with a blade wedged in my throat, testing every sentence before I speak. Today, 10 people are trying to kill themselves, and we are burning under the sun because I forgot the SPF 80. The first time I was named whore, I was 12 years old. Turns out you don't actually forget trauma. You want to know why we're all so messed up? PTSD, baby. Above my bed, nailed to the wall, the salmon with the hook in its mouth reads scripture. The octopus strokes her tentacles and watches while I try to dream in black and white. Knowing how to write a eulogy lives under my skin. I know it through the burned out husk in my palm. And then someone comes along and asks you to live a life. This is more of a comment than a question. 1, what happens when you become a cage you can't run from? 2, being broken doesn't mean being a fragment. If I repeat this often enough, it will ring true. 3, hurting isn't love, even when it feels something like love because it feels like something. 4, you are not obligated to hold a bullet so everyone feels safe and good. Your body is not a gun. Your body is not a house, a stick, or a poem. 6, you are not a secret or a nightmare, like how the bees are dying or that hope won't save you. 7, it is okay to believe in God. I will share that my son is actually doing very well right now. He has been on his journey of mental health, and he's doing very well. And he's actually away at college right now, learning how to be a soil scientist and a water scientist. So it's been a long journey that we're both coming out of. Never will I ever. Not yet, my sister calls over her shoulder. Wait, one more second. The winter sun sparks on the snow. My stomach is hard and hurting with anticipation. She drops her hand as though a racing flag. Now, we bend forward, cross-legged, nose touching toes through layers of wool, and fly under the barbed wire fence. I do not lift my head at the last second. My sister's laughter echoes in the pasture, morning sun bright. We slip past unbothered horses and cruise over solid cow patties until skidding out at the edge of the river. The trick? Stay on until we reach the bottom without landing in the river. Dad's voice reminds us, always see how far you can go. Mom's says, frozen doesn't always mean frozen. In this field, I speak nothing about loneliness to the birds that stay for winter. I stare at the evergreen tree shaped like my clavicle. I dissect all the other ways of escaping. We shout hallelujahs to the wind. My face cracks open with a smile. Never will I ever let anyone see the gallon of birdseed in my gut. I lie in the snow and think about the time I will be older than the girl lying under the ice. And I'm gonna close with this poem. I believe really strongly in the power of women's narratives and the lived experience of women's journeys being shared as powerful tools for healing. So that's what this poem means to me. Labor pains. Woman I did not birth, be a nasty woman. Loud voiced, gut laughing deep in the belly, let secrets spill as splashes of indigo pouring down chins. Spread your legs wide, take up 2 seats, you whiskey drinking, private club hijacking, shorn head, hairy armpits, you fucking goddess. Tell someone. Trauma will bury itself inside your prison bar skin because you are brilliant, because the name you wore to Sunday school is not your name. Woman I did not birth, be colossal. Take up space, take up knitting or boxing, take up with the circus and a woman with tattoos of women in bikinis on her arms, backpack through Nepal or Brooklyn, paint scenes of kink or puppies on the backs of your lovers, eat well and often. Gorge yourself on grapefruit and avocado, on dark chocolate and medium rare steak. Spray whipped cream down your pink panties. Marry the farmer because he knows how to handle a bull. Or the girl in Bali because her kiss felt like scripture. You are scripture, you radical introvert, you fire-breathing dragon. Listen to Janelle Monáe or Florence and the Machine while dancing naked for your lovers, all of them. Say your name, say your name, say your name, all of them. Woman I did not birth. Do not walk lightly. Be heavy-footed, heavy-handed, be dirty. Let them try and tell you to clean your mouth, to clean your house. Strength will be required of you. Let them try and tell you how to grieve, how to love, how to hold on to living, what being a woman is.
Thanks
Thank
so much,
you.
Rhianne.
Thank
That was
you.
really amazing. And there's a lot of comments coming through on the chat about how much people were really moved by your work, and all 5 of the poets this evening. And I want to thank everyone who was reading with us this evening. Jessica, Kyle, Kelly, RC, and Rayanne. This was really great. And Rayanne, you mentioned that there was quite a variety of poetic styles and themes and techniques. And I thought that was really, I don't think I planned that, but that was, that was really excellent. I really enjoyed that. I want to say thanks again to Shelf Life Books for being our host. One day when we're back doing in-person events, we'll be back at Shelf Life Books. Until then, you can browse their website. You can also do some in-store shopping. We will be back, what did I say? November 18th, that's our next event. And you can check out our Facebook page. We're on Twitter and singleonion.com. And yeah, thanks everyone for showing up. This was really great. And we're really pleased that we can continue to bring poets and our audience together to sort of share in this amazing work, even in this strange time that we've been having. So thanks everyone, and have an excellent night.